Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2024 release Exhuma. It's a Shudder exclusive and it's coming to Shudder on Friday, June 14th. So this is a no spoiler review. First of all, I need to apologize. My energy is not what it normally is and my brain may be a little scattered for this one, but I'm going to do my best job. The reason for my issues are I've been going through some family problems, family emergency that I've been dealing with for about a week now. So I'm very exhausted, but I still wanted to get this review out because I did quite like this movie and I do highly recommend it, and wanted to make sure that before it hits Shudder, this positive review is out there to encourage people to go ahead and see it. So anyway, Exhuma, written and directed by Jae-hyun Jang, who did The Priest, Savaha, The Sixth Finger, and House of the Disappeared, which I have not seen any of those works. This is a South Korean production, so it is a subtitled film. It is entirely subtitled, so if you cannot do subtitles for some reason, this will not be the film for you. But I would say if you just don't prefer subtitles, give this one a go, because it is very entertaining. It's very interesting. There's a lot of great stuff about this film. It's not by any means like my favorite horror film of 2024, but it's good. It's definitely good. So a quick synopsis. It's basically about a team of, well, the head guy calls himself a geomancer, which I don't think I've ever seen that term or that concept used in a film before, so I thought that was very cool. So he's a geomancer, and he has this whole team with him who kind of do demonic things. Like, think like, not kind of exorcism type stuff, but it's a totally different culture than the American culture. So they have their own, twists and takes on it. So it is very interesting for that perspective. So basically, they deal with demons and, that type of stuff. So the whole crux of this movie rests in a plot of land that has someone buried there that they are paid a lot of money to kind of exhume and do their business with. And they want it done kind of carefully because they don't want any bad spirits coming about. So they do it. It's a horror movie, so things don't go exactly as planned. And that's all I'm going to say about it. It is good. Now, I will say that I'm typically not into these types of films, like this subgenre of horror, but this one really did keep my attention for the most part, and I truly didn't know where they were going to end up going with it, and I'm glad that I've seen it. My only big problem with it, it is over 2 hours, and it has no right to be over 2 hours for what the story is. I think with credits, it's literally 2 hours and 14 minutes, which if you watch this movie, I think a lot of people would agree with me. That is way too much time for what this story is. That said, there's a lot of really good stuff. The dialogue is very well written. Well, at least what I'm reading subtitle-wise and what I'm hearing from the actors in their native tongue. It sounds great. The dialogue I thought was really well done. It feels realistic. It feels interesting as well. It doesn't feel like they wasted a whole lot as far as dialogue goes. There are a lot of movies out there, especially like, and I'm not saying this is the case, but I'm just saying especially lower budget horror films, which I watch a lot of, where the dialogue just seems like they're wasting time. And it's just like has no impact on the film. With this one, I think they were pretty choosy about what they were having their characters say to each other. And it did enhance things, whether that's the actual story or just the character relationships or this, changing dynamics of any situation. It has a cool investigative mystery feel to it, which I really didn't see coming for what the subgenre is. So I really like that aspect to it. It's not a very close comparison, but the mystery aspect of like being investigative and trying to figure something out. Think like The Ring, like how there was this investigation into Samara and the well and like what was going on with the tape, all that type of stuff. It's that type of thing. There are really no similarities, but I'm just kind of giving an idea of the mystery feel to it. The characters are quite interesting. That's one of the things I really like. These are rich, deep, very interesting characters that you actually feel like you're wanting to know more about and see what happens to them and are fearful that something bad could happen to them. Now, obviously, I'm not going to say if anything bad does happen to any of them. You have to watch the film for that. It's shot very well, and it has a lot of a lot that's framed with some interesting environmental aspects. There are a lot of shots that are done out in the woods, with these nice big mountains and hills in the background, and it's beautiful. It looks great. They did a wonderful job with the cinematography, really using the beauty of what was around them, but then also taking that beauty and through use of a score, making it seem creepy and very off-putting at the same time. So it's this weird dynamic, but awesome dynamic, where you're watching these things and you're like, that looks gorgeous, but it's also very like ominous and creepy, and I would feel afraid if I was like physically in that situation where the characters are. So very cool with that. The score is at its best when it's minimalist, and that's when it really adds to the creepy atmosphere that I was talking about. I love minimalist scores. Now, not just from the standpoint of, the actual composition of it, just not using tons of instruments, because I do like it when it's kind of, more like one or two instruments at a time, because I think less is more with scores, especially for horror films for me personally. But I think also minimalist in the sense of when you're choosing to actually have the score incorporated in scenes versus not. Because silence in a horror film in particular is very impactful, and they do a good job with making those choices in this film. There's a ritual sequence in this film that feels very over the top, and kind of ends up becoming unintentionally comical. I did not like that aspect of it. I don't know why they decided to construct the ritual scene the way they did. It just comes off as way too much, and it comes off as they were trying to do parody, and this film was not meant to be parody from the feel of the rest of it. You just have this one scene where you're just like, this feels like it doesn't fit, and it's too much. It's just too much. So that's one of my criticisms. The film does have pacing issues, and definitely should have been shaved down some. Like I said, it's over 2 hours. This story did not need anywhere near over 2 hours. I think it makes way more sense to be closer to an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45, but there's definitely some time that really needed to be shaved off of this one. There is some costuming for an evil in this that is not very good. Conceptually, what they came up with it doesn't look good. It's not scary. It looks kind of hokey. It kind of goes along with the whole ritual aspect of things, where it's just too much. It's too over the top. It was also it's over the top and too on the nose, and it's also just there's not a whole lot of intricate. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not a very intricate costume or prosthetics. When I think if they would have gone a little bit further with it, they could have created something very cool. Because conceptually, what the evil is a great idea. It's a very cool idea. But then when you see it, you're just kind of like, oh, that's okay. That's a choice. And I was just like, wish that was better. But the ending is good, but it's way too drawn out. That is one of my biggest issues, is when they go for like this big ending, and you can make it a big ending without making it super long, because when you draw things out, it doesn't have the impact that you think it does. When you're like ratcheting things up and you're trying to keep the tension and the action sequences or the fight scenes or the final confrontation, when you're trying to keep that feeling intense, the longer you sustain that for an audience member, over time, how engaged they are with that and how they feel that intensity really starts to step down. And there is such a thing as just trying to maintain that too long. And I think in this film, they try to maintain that way too long, and it peters out, unfortunately. But a decent story-wise, for the whole film, a decent ending to it. I thought it was good. This has a very similar feel to the film Cure by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, if anyone's seen that. That's actually a Criterion release at this point. You should see that film, which is really good. I think that's also I can't remember. That's the Japanese. I think that's a Japanese film actually. But it's really, really good. And I'm saying like story-wise, they're not that similar, but like feel, like the atmosphere that it has to it, the investigative aspect as well. So if you like the film like Cure, this film is not as good as Cure, but it has a very similar feel. So if you like the feel of Cure and you've seen that film, this one would be one for you. This film actually feels a lot like it's about human generations, the issues created by those generations, and the need for subsequent generations to lay those issues to rest for future generations. I'm going to read that one more time because I said generations a lot, so I'm going to go a little bit slower on it because I know it's kind of like, wait, where... the film feels like it's about human generations, the issues created by them, and the need for subsequent generations to lay the issues to rest for future generations. So basically, whatever the current generation is, having to deal with issues created by the generations before them so that the generations ahead of them don't have to deal with that. I think that's kind of what's going on with this film. At least that's what I took from it. But this is where I'd love your opinions on it, so go ahead and put some comments down there and we can talk about it. Out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm going to give it a very solid 3.5 star rating. I did consider 4 star, but I backed it down to the 3.5 just because there are some issues. One of the biggest things being pacing. If pacing was a lot better, I would have gone ahead and bumped it up to the 4, or if that costuming was done better or that ritual scene was done, like those two things were done better, I probably could have got it up to the 4, but no, it's definitely a 3.5. But a very strong one at that, so go ahead and check it out. Do me a favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would greatly appreciate that. Hit the thumbs up on this video to help me out with that YouTube algorithm, and hit the notification bell button if you want to know when I'm putting up new videos. But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and until next time, keep it brutal.